russosbrand.com, where the pros are the pros.
Bully Ray on Busted Open was talking about AEW talent. And he said every single one of those talent that go out there are working for Tony Khan's hug, Tony Khan's approval. They're hoping that in the middle of their match, they get into "This is awesome" chants so Tony can tweet from Gorilla, justified "This is awesome" chants. They want 5-star ratings. They want a good cage match rating. I'm willing to bet everything on it. That's the rhyme, the reason, the motivation behind these matches. Absolutely. I've given you the root of the problem, and it's been the problem from day one, and this problem isn't going away, folks.
I agree 100%, but why is that any different from the rest of the business? How is that a unique problem just for AEW? Explain that to me. Why is it that for years I've been the lone voice in the wastelands protesting against this whole attitude of the hug from someone, the 5-star report or review? Why? Why is it that because this started way back when everyone took exception to the fact that I pointed out that Meltzer had so much influence that he now dictated that the best match on WrestleMania 3 was Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage. Listen, it was an amazing match. As a person watching it, I loved it. All right. As a person within the business, I understood Hogan and Andre had the best match on this. And that influence by Meltzer, still to this day, is so pervasive that not only was that talked about on the Hall of Fame speech, not only is it so pervasive that to this day, talent go out to endeavor to be the Steamboat and Savage of every show they're on, and not one wants to be the Hogan and Andre. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're within the business, and again, you're making a living off of it, and you are reliant on the number of people that show up and your ability to draw that audience to make money, Hogan and Andre were the thing, the driving force that sold that WrestleMania, regardless of whether it was 78,000 or 93,000. Who gives a shit? Whatever number of people were in that Pontiac Silverdome at that point in time came to see two people. And would you rather have Hogan and Andre's payoff for that show, or would you have rather had Savage and Steamboat's?
Ex Savage and Steamboat, right?
But and it's not, from a fan's perspective, again, right. For a fan, which is what Dave Meltzer is, for him, that was the best match. For a business, Hogan and Andre were.
Yeah.
Because if it hadn't been for Hogan and Andre drawing that house, and how do we know they drew that house? They were on top. If they weren't on top, they'd have been somewhere else in the card, would they have not?
Yeah.
So they drew it. So you'd rather not be the match that draws, and that's where the shift came. Mm-hmm. That was where things changed. No longer was it about having the match that drew the most money. It was having the match that got the most review. Why is that different now? Like that only exists in AEW. When you're going, every single wrestler for the last how many years have aspired to be the Savage and Steamboat. No one aspires to be the Hogan and Andre. No one. And that's why we have a business today that has more athletic talent and ability than it ever has in the history of the wrestling business. Let's face it. I mean, these people are amazing. And it's more on its ass. Oh, no. WWE's making money. Well, congratulations. Well, you don't work for WWE, so guess what you're not making? When at one time, you could go many different places and make a living. Granted, you wouldn't make as much as you would in other particular territories, but you'd still make a living. Why were you able to do that? Because you were able to draw an audience, because every other person that you worked with was all centered on and focused on, hey, what do we need to do as a group to draw more of an audience? That was it. Yeah. Now, everyone who wrestles goes out and has the indie mindset of, I'm working just for the night. And I'm not working for this audience. I'm working for the audience backstage and the audience of one that showed up tonight to write me a report.
Al, you know what's so funny about that? And it was so, you don't realize it, but it was so evident like just a couple of weeks ago. Okay. This is exactly what you're saying. And they don't understand the ramifications. I have seen Cody Rhodes title matches where he literally had to hit his opponent with 4 or 5 crossroads to beat him. I've seen it. Okay. So what did they do the other night? He's cutting a promo with Cena. He hit Cena with 1 crossroad and Cena was dead. Now I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute. It took you 5, 6 crossroads to beat other people, but you killed Cena with, they don't understand the damage they do. They think people just forget and block that stuff out. They don't, bro. So by doing that,
because you're educating an audience to like or dislike whatever you want, believe or disbelieve whatever you want. And you have the ability to do that. And when you teach them, there's Cody's finish, but it took him 5 to beat this one guy. Hey, if I'm sitting in the back and I'm a guy that has any kind, I'm up, where I'm going to be working with Cody. I see it took 5 to beat Seth Rollins, brother. You're going to at least 5 on me. Do you understand? You're not. I'm not going down. That's the old mentality, but it doesn't exist anymore. But that was the old mentality, even by bookers and promoters. Why do you think wrestlers had such ridiculous fights in the bars and things back in the day? Well, because they could not afford to have a fan whip their ass. Because if a fan whipped their ass, what good are you now? Mm-hmm. I can't now. I'm going to book you against the heavyweight champion. Well, the heavyweight champion's got to go. He's got to mow through you like grass. Because if a fan can whip your ass, how are they ever going to believe that now you're a threat to the heavyweight champion? You understand?
Yeah.
If you're the heavyweight champion, God help you if a fan whips your ass. You're done. You got to drop the belt and get out of the territory, at least for a while, because now the word's going to go around among the fans that Sam, the local guy, beat you. Well, now Sam's more of a draw than you are. Used to, a lot of the boys would be like, well, you hit so-and-so with the DDT, took 3 DDTs, beat him. Well, you're going to at least hit me with 3 of those.
Bro,
I'm not.
Al, you know what's so funny, bro? Like, I swear to God, bro, they were in Brussels a couple of weeks ago, right? They were in Brussels. Okay. Yeah. Gunther is the world champion, and they're promoting Gunther Jey Uso. They're really, pushing Jey Uso.
Yeah.
So, Al, they're in Brussels. So there's an NXT tag team wrestler from Brussels.
Okay.
So what do? They book Gunther against the NXT tag team champion that has never, ever been on the show. I had no idea who this dude was.
Then Gunther, you give the kid from Brussels a little bit, and then you eat him alive.
Bro, the kid from Brussels got 60% of the match because they were in Brussels. So wait, Al, to your point, me, who's in the business, I'm sitting there saying, how is he ever going to beat Jey Uso? This is a tag team wrestler from NXT that beat him 60% of the match. I'm sitting at home saying, how is he ever going to beat Jey Uso?
But they've made those mistakes prior to this too. But you're right. I mean, they've made these mistakes with Gunther. Remember we had a conversation back
Sami Zayn.
Yeah, and where I was like, hey, if they kept building Gunther, he could have been an opponent for Brock Lesnar. He could have been an opponent for Roman Reigns. He could have been, because he was big enough and had the impressive carriage when he walked into the ring that you believed he could be a threat. Yeah. But now if he's having trouble with Sami Zayn, then, what's he going to do against Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or whatever? Yeah. And it's a short-term, hey, let's go for the reaction, okay? I'm not going to say, and I'm not going to deem it a pop because it's not a pop. Let's just go for the short-term reaction, all right? And because in the long term, this kid from Brussels, they would have never hurt this kid from Brussels at all. No. If Gunther went out there, let him get over on Gunther a little bit at the front, Gunther chops him, just shuts him down. Gunther starts to work him over, but then starts to get a little complacent, a little arrogant. The kid kind of rallies back, almost looks like he might be able to pull an upset, like that's a Hail Mary, and Gunther just drops him. And that nobody in Brussels would be like, oh, that's bullshit, man.
Yep.
He's facing the world champion, for Christ's sake. And then you made the kid, you got your moment with the kid in the hometown crowd. And then, boom, Gunther's still the world champion, and he's a threat to everyone. Because if Gunther's the world champion, he's the apex.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's the acme of he's the summit of your mountain. And he's having trouble because basically in the fans' eyes, that you're talking about the kid from Brussels is an NXT tag team guy. He's here. Gunther's all the way up here in the clouds. And if Gunther has trouble, so much trouble like that to where the kid gets 60% of the match, Jey Uso should just come out and light Gunther on fire.
Yep.
We're done. There's no heat at WrestleMania at all. Because now if Jey Uso can't do more than 60% of the match against Gunther, well, now he's less than what this NXT kid was. So you're going for the short-term reaction and killing long-term business.